Hey folks, what's here? Welcome back. Another Poem Master video. So today let's go over this month's the new EXs and you know how they fit in terms of how beneficial their the X's are, right? Which I do think I do kind of like want to change the I guess title of these videos a bit, because I think it's more oriented towards in terms of how much they benefit from getting a 6-star EX, right? In terms of from their sync move usage, right? So anyways, that's the first caveat. So in terms of any changes, not much changes since the last one. I think we dropped like Jasmine down one, right? Dropped Jasmine down one. She still gets like a lot of things on her sync, right? Obviously, again, recuperation, the mega stats, right? Among other things. However, it does feel like, like in terms of like recuperation, again, it's good, but usually you just use support syncs for like the first sync, and usually by the time you get your first sync out, most stages don't really like go hyper offense until like they use either the first sync or like sometime like in the middle, right? So you usually don't like lose too much HP off of it, so that's why we moved Jasmine a bit down, I guess. But yeah, anyways, moving on, let's talk about the where the new units fit in all this, right? So starting off with, I guess, Raihan. Raihan is pretty similar to I guess Lancedos, right? You do get the you do get a sync move multiplier, but it's a weather multiplier and it's 50%, so it's not like the biggest deal in the world, right? In comparison to like some of the other ones get like 2-time multipliers. It's a 50% multiplier, right? The same as, I guess, Ace Roll. You know what, man, we can maybe, I guess, move Ace Roll down here as well. A bit more fitting. But yeah, same as, like, again, Ace Roll, Lance, they get the 50% multiplier, which, again, is not the biggest deal in the world. Moving on. Although, speaking of, maybe we can move Cynthia down as well, because she also doesn't get, like, a huge multiplier either. But again, like, the stat buffs on her sync are really, 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 really nice, right? But yeah, in terms of, like, damage on her sync, it's not the best. Moving on. B has a really fantastic one, right? Inertia sync is really, really great, and then plus I think it's like of all like the other fighting type sync nukers, right? Or fighting type, I guess, damage dealers, right? You got Mei, whose sync damage not very good, right, to say the least. Or at least her first one. Her second one's actually not bad. And then Wally, which is nice, but it's not a really great setup at all, for one, and it's just not really great in terms of usability. The other one's Karina, which is the worst, right? You have like nothing on it. So yeah, I mean, again, in comparison, it's obviously very, very, very nice. And she also has solid stats to back it up as well. On top of having Crit Strike 3, which also obviously again applies to your sync move, so that's very, very nice. Moving on, Ethan, basically at the bottom. Like, you don't want to sync with him, like, almost ever, right? His sync's not very great, and there's just like so many other like fire type sinkers that are sinkers, units that just have much better syncs than them, right? Yeah, he basically doesn't really get anything. Like, unlike like Cynthia, like at least or Blue, like at least they get a mega on their first sync. Like Ethan, you almost just never sync with them at all. Moving on, Hilda is obviously fantastic in that category. Got an AoE sync with the which actually does a lot of damage, right? I think is the highest damaging fire type sync move in the game, although with a very awkward sync grid build, which you probably don't want to do. You usually would want to run a more I guess usable grid, right, with the standfast stuff with flare butts, unless like your first sync can go ahead and just one shot the whole stage, which if you're fighting a fire weak stage, a lot of situations you can, right? So in those scenarios, then yeah, maybe you go for the full sync new grid. All right, moving on, let's see what we have here. We got Grimsley. I guess it's not like the worst, but like, it's not the worst, but it's like pretty darn bad, right? Because like, you know, since you're attack EX, you always get that innate, right? And Grimsley's situation is when none of the opponent's stats are raised, which is relatively easy to do. Just snatch right before you sync, right? And hope they don't buff before, like in between that. If they do a buff in between that, you're kind of screwed. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, you could get a sync nuke in it. Although again, it is, even though it is 2 times, like you have very, very bad physical attack stat. Yeah, this is a very, very bad physical attack stat overall. Yeah, which is why again, I guess I changed the title from like priority just to like how beneficial they are. If you guys want me to like do like a more focused on like overall, like considering like the overall unit usage and stuff, and not just how beneficial their 6 REXs are, you let me know in the comments. You could do that instead, right? But yeah, in terms of like beneficial, I guess it's beneficial because at least he gets some use now with, again, a sync nuke with the extra 1.5 times modifier, or else he's really basically, you know, not useful at all, right? Which again, in a priority list, he would be like much lower, but yeah, like technically, yeah, you get some benefits, even though it's not very great. Which, by the way, again, I forgot to say this reminder, which I always do, right? Obviously, in my opinion, you should always EX your favorite units, because the EX mechanic honestly is an overkill for most units, right? Even like you know, again, in the lower tiers, even like a blue, right? Does he get much from EXing him? No, he gets like almost he gets like some like the worst benefits from EXing blue. However, it's still, you know, do you like solid amount of damage, right? So again, like they're all like fine, right? Just EX whoever you like. You don't need to follow this at all, right? You know, feel like the character outfit, all that stuff. In my opinion. All right. And also again, this is not like what's the best unit in the game list, because I mean, Leaf is definitely not, you know, on like a top tier, right, in terms of like overall unit. And Cynthia's obviously, or Blue is obviously not that low, or May, right? May Bunny, so obviously not that low either. Again, strictly in terms of how beneficial their EXs are in conjunction to the usage on their sync move, right? Moving on, got Berg. Berg is actually pretty nice. It's kind of like, Berg kind of reminds me of like Brendan, except like slightly worse, because Brendan, inertia is better than I think it's Smarty Pants, right? Because Smarty Pants, it is like a debuff, so like you can't really keep it on the opponent once the opponent gets taken out. Next set of opponents come on, you have to reapply it. In comparison to like inertia, which you keep it, you know, for the whole battle, unless obviously the opponent debuffs you, which isn't super common to have the opponents debuff your striker, right? Usually, I mean, if they do debuff, and they generally debuff, right, they usually just debuff your tank, mostly. They're like AoE debuffs aren't super common. They happen. They definitely happen, right? From time to time, a lot of defense crush AoE moves, right? But it's just, yeah, it is like sync nukes that are buffs are better than sync moves that debuff, like straight up, right? And yeah, again, Brendan has that, and then Brendan also has like the sun thing, so it's Leovody's kind of like Brendan, right? So put them around the same tier, right? Okay. Oh, last one, Nessa. Nessa's nice. I mean, solid tech, you know, sync nuke. Although I do have to say, like, her sync nuke is good, but most of the time you won't be really running her as a sync nuker is the thing, right? Unless you just straight up don't have May. If you straight up don't have May, then okay, you can run her as a sync nuke. But most of the time you won't be really running her to sync. Most of the time it's like she's just better overall as like a Razor Shell DPS unit, right? Even though again she does have like 2 sync, but these are just like, again, debuff sync nukes, right? Even though like Relentless is a pretty good one, but like Cakewalk's not great. But yeah, most of the time you're using her as DPS. But again, these are options. These are definitely options that you could use. Even though, again, they're not the best. So, anyways, that's for this one. I guess I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me guys think in the comments down below. Thank you for this video. So, we're channel for more Poe Masters. I'll see you guys in the next one then.